Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. And today the spotlight is on this. We have the Masters of the Universe Revelation Man-at-Arms. So this is from Mattel and is part of their Masterverse toy line. The figure features 30 points of articulation. And we have Man-at-Arms as he's seen in the new Netflix series. Okay, so I found this at my local Target the other night. I want to say it was like either $21 or $22. I was kind of surprised to have seen it just because the Masters of the Universe stuff, especially the newer, anytime there's new figures, they always get sold out really fast. And this was like later in the evening. And I found this figure actually on an end cap. It wasn't placed with the rest of the Masters of the Universe figures. It was placed on an end cap display, and I think they're more so just promoting, like, you know, holiday, Christmas shopping in general. So also on the end cap display, there was some new G.I. Joe classified figures, some new Transformers. And I think that was more so just like grab people's attention, especially with it, you know, being the holiday season, and if people are walking up and down the aisles and you're doing some Christmas shopping, they're more likely to see these figures than if they actually went into the figure aisle themselves. So I saw this, I grabbed it, and I'm really stoked to have this. This is one of those oddball figures that I didn't think I'd come across in the wild. Just because I know, you know, this is a figure a lot of people are jonesing for. I'm not too deep into the Revelation collection. You know, for me, it's like I'm pretty happy with just collecting the Origins figures. And with Revelation, I'm kind of just cherry picking, you know, certain figures. I don't feel the need to have the entire collection. I've passed on He-Man and Skeletor because to me they feel very vanilla. They don't feel like, you know, anything special. I did pick up the Evil Lyn. I love that figure a lot just because I'm very fond of the character, especially the way they portrayed her in the new Netflix cartoon. I grabbed Teela, I have Beastman. At some point in time, I want to grab the Mossman figure because I think he looks really neat. But I'm not 100%, you know, sold onto like buying the larger figures yet. You know, for me, the Origins line is kind of more my cup of tea. I like the more, you know, retro vintage look of the smaller figures. These are cool, but at the same time, as much as I like, you know, the way these look, there is a part of me that I'd rather go back and try to hunt down, you know, either the classics figures or try to like round off my collection of 2000X Masters of the Universe figures. But like I said, you know, Man-at-Arms, he's awesome. I'm a big fan of the character in general. And the one thing I like about this figure is that it reminds me so much of the 2000X figure. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's get this review started. So first off, this figure comes in the large box that's part of the Masterverse line. I kind of feel this box could probably be made a little bit smaller by like maybe 30%. It's a little too large for my taste. But it does a great job of, like, you know, presenting the action figure. It really sells you on the figure you're getting. And, you know, they proudly display all the different accessories that comes with them. I love the illustration on the side here. It's a really cool illustration of Duncan. He has the big thick mustache, the heavy helmet. On the back, another great illustration. Man-at-Arms, the heroic master of weapons. Bound by duty and honor to the royal crown of Eternia, the man whose friends refer to him simply as Duncan protects the realm under the mantle of Man-at-Arms. Considered to be one of the most powerful allies in the battle against evil, Man-at-Arms is a warrior, an inventor, a mentor to Prince Adam, a friend to the forces of good, and a father of Teela and Roboto, and fights to protect them all. So here's some other figures that are available in the newest wave. Of course, they're giving us He-Man again. There's Man-at-Arms, there's Teela. Be on the lookout for a review of her in the future. There's Skeletor, Beastman, and Spikor. I saw Spikor. I had to pass on him because At the Target I was buying this figure at, they kind of have assigned, they limit like collectible action figures. They only allow one per customer, and I kind of find that odd because that's the only Target near me that does that. All my other Targets, they don't really care, but for some reason, this one's kind of aware of the collector presence, and they kind of limit the amount of action figures you buy. Not necessarily all action figures, but the ones that are aimed more so at collectors. I don't necessarily know how they enforce that, but I do know that sometimes when they run limits on certain items, for example, like Pokemon cards, a month or two ago, one of the Targets I went to, I was buying some Pokemon cards, and there was a sign that said, limit 3 per customer. It was either limit 3 or limit 2. And I remember I was thinking to myself, I'm just going to go one over. I don't think they'll notice it. And then when I went to go check out at the self-checkout, it actually rang up like I exceeded the limit. So I don't know if this Target enforces the the policy on only buying one collectible action figure per customer. And at the time, I think I was buying this, and I think like a G.I. Joe and a Transformer. So I was already kind of like pushing my luck, so I didn't want to chance it. So yeah, let's take a look at this figure. Really excited to check this out. So I've only watched, in terms of the new Netflix cartoon, I've only watched the first half. The second half was released maybe like a week ago, but I haven't had time to get around to watching it. I'm enjoying Revelation right now. I mean, I have a few minor, teeny issues with it, but for the most part, I think it's a fun, fresh take on Masters of the Universe. Like the stuff that Kevin Smith does, it's always hit or miss with me. Like, I'm a big fan of like Clerks. I think that's like a perfect movie. But some of his other stuff it's always hit or miss. Masters of the Universe, I'm enjoying it, but at the same time, I kind of have some minor quibbles with parts of it, but I'm enjoying it. But I'm not enjoying it enough where it makes me want to go out and buy every action figure. So, all right. So first impressions of Man at Arms in the tray. It's awesome. I love how they give you this cardboard graphic. It's kind of like a stone wall. So in some ways, it looked kind of bootleg, but if you need a backdrop for a diorama or for something on a display shelf, you can easily just use this. The figure looks nice. The shade of green, it seems it's a little drab for me. It's a bit more muted than I'd like, but I do like the orange. The orange is really striking. I love the head. The head reminds me so much of the 2000X figure. And for me, that's one of the biggest selling points for me wanting to buy this guy, is because I'm a big fan of the 2000X Man at Arms action figure. And there's something about this that just kind of like, I don't know. There's something about this that just reminds me so much of that figure. And I don't know. All right, so here's his crazy mace. All right, so we got extra hands, but for now I'm just going to leave them inside the package. It looks like we have another gripping hand, a slightly splayed out hand, a fist, and another fist. And as you can tell here, these hands are slightly different. This hand and this hand, they have armor plating over the top of the hand, whereas these don't. I'm not sure why that is. Alright, this figure, I just realized it's tied down with those plastic ties. I'm not a big fan of these tinier plastic ties. They're annoying, they're hard to remove. The way these figures are packaged to begin with, I don't think they need to go this far in terms of anti-theft measures. Because it seems like to steal something like this in the store would require a lot of work, just because of the way the box is shaped and the amount of tape they use to seal it. This isn't simply just a figure on a bubble where you can rip the bubble off. Okay, so we have Man at Arms. We have Duncan himself. And just trying to get this guy in a neutral pose so we can talk about him. All right. Man, this one's joints are really tight. His arm doesn't want to fold down. It'll fold up, but this... God, it's stubborn. Yeah, this arm here is really tight. And I don't want to risk breaking it just because it's a new toy. I don't want to break a new toy. Let me take the vest off first. I want to see what I'm doing here. It's kind of black. All right, so this joint here is super tight, and his arm does not want to fold down. It'll rotate. It'll roll up, but it won't roll down. And I don't want to risk breaking anything, so we might have to just review it like as is, which is unfortunate because I want to give this guy a proper review. Holy cow, that's tight. Yeah, this is a tight joint on my figure. Yeah, so this arm does not want to roll down. So you see this here, it's like it'll go so far, but then it gets stuck. I don't know if... Alright, I think that's as far as it's going to go. It's not going to go any further down. Like I said, I don't want to break it. I've had bad luck with action figures. If you watch my reviews, a lot of these unboxings I do, every so often I run to like all these weird quality control issues. It's not in my head either. People might think it's in my head, but if you go back and watch my videos, there's enough unboxings I do where there's always something wrong with an action figure. And most of the time, it's always like some sort of weird stuck joint or something. So now I can't find... Alright, the hard thing with this is that, right, the arms could like roll up like this, but now I can't find where the joint is. I just want to manually raise it up without knowing where the joint is. If I roll it the wrong way, it's gonna break. So there it is. Okay. Alright, so we're gonna leave it alone and just view it as is. It's kind of disappointing that it's as tight as it is, but at least it's not broken. It's just tight. Which I guess in some cases it's better to have a joint that's too tight than too loose. But at least if it's loose, you can at least play around with it. This one's kind of going to be stuck. Alright, so first off, let's talk about the sculpting on this guy. When you look at him, it immediately screams Man at Arms. The armor's awesome. It's nice and sharp. It's a softer, rubbery plastic, but even so, all the edges are nice. They're hard and they're well defined. I love this shoulder pad with these kind of, I don't know, these things that kind of like protrude from the armor plating. It looks really neat. I'm kind of bothered by the fact that I have this issue within the Origins figures, but for some reason Duncan's like armor plating on his arms, they never want to stay in place. They either always slide down, it's never a snug fit. And sometimes I kind of wish it would just be sculpted onto the arm, but then you're talking a higher production cost because then it's a very specific mold. They can't just use a generic arm mold. But it just bothers me that this isn't as snug as I'd like it to be. I'd like it to remain in place without it floating around. The forearm gauntlet, though, it's nice and snug, so that works well. The detailing on them is nice, just like on the chest. The sculpting's nice and hard, well-defined lines, really clean angles. The paint application's pretty precise. There's like a red circle on the elbow. Likewise, the paint application on the belt is very clean. Where the red gemstone is, it doesn't look like there's any overspray or bleed. And some nice highlighting here on this fur. I'm not sure if the camera catches it, but there's like a light grayish blue dry brushed onto the top. So it gives it some more definition and highlighting. This green, I'm not sure how accurate it is to the show, but it almost looks more like a very dark Hulk kind of green. It's not as bright and vibrant as I'd want it to look. The helmet, it's well done. It almost makes Man-at-Arms' face look too big, if that makes any sense. It looks like his head's too small, but he has a giant face. I would have liked it if you could remove his helmet. I think that's something I've always wanted with a Man-at-Arms figure. I love how the armor has the fur trim painted. It's a similar color to what we're seeing down here. And I think there might be some highlighting on here. It's kind of hard to tell with my lighting. A lot of detail goes into the front of the armor, but on the back it's very minimal. You're just getting a couple of lines scribed in. It's nice that there's a rim at the base of the armor here. It kind of makes it look a little bit more well-defined. If you're looking underneath, you can see where the ab crunch is. It's below the chest line. His gauntlets are painted. It's a nice color that matches his belt. This arm has a gauntlet or a bracer, and this one just has a full forearm guard. I like that his armor is asymmetrical. You know, only this side has the armor plating. This is well done. The shin guard and knee guard. It's one piece. The nice thing with this is it's not going to slide down just because where the straps are, it's above the cuff of the boot. There's some nice highlighting here on the fur. The bandages are well painted. So this is this is aimed, I think, more at the collector than the kids. I mean, Masters of the Universe seems like it's aimed at the collectors in general. But this one feels a little bit more premium. I think, in my opinion, this is at a slightly higher grade than like a Marvel Legends. Just because I think the paint application on the accessories is really well done. In terms of the body, though, the body feels it's comparable to something you'd feel like on a Marvel Legends, especially the plastic quality. The plastic quality feels kind of similar. You never know, maybe they're using the same manufacturing plant. You look under the skirt, and this is how the engineering is on his lower torso and the legs. One thing I noticed right out of the box is that he does have a thigh cut here, but it feels a little tight. Alright, so this one's loose. Alright, there we go. I got it out. So my big worry was that I was kind of worried that this would be kind of like stuck, or like have that weird like gummy feeling or tacky feeling when you try rotating it. But it feels like that the cuts and the indents are working well together, so it feels like it's not stuck. It's rotating like it should. But one thing that bothers me with the thigh cut is that this is a very minor quibble, but it's not perfectly flush. As you can see here, it kind of juts out a teeny bit from the top. So even though there's a thigh cut, it's not a completely clean cut. The leg's slightly overshot on this side, and if you try to line it up with the muscles, it's still kind of, you still feel that and can see that kind of like ridge effect. But it's a very, very minor quibble. I don't think anyone else is going to be bothered by it. His hands are asymmetrical. I just noticed this one's missing the armor plating, whereas this one doesn't have it. So I'm kind of thinking that if they're giving us two hands with the armor plating, my guess is that in the near future, we're probably going to get an Attorney and Royal Guard, which will have the symmetrical armor plating on both sides, so that it only makes sense that he'd have armor plating on this hand, followed by a corresponding gauntlet on this arm and upper shoulder armor. Because it seems like it's an easy do. You know, you just swap the head out, give him additional pieces, and then you have a Royal Guard. In terms of the articulation, this guy's arms rotate. As I stated before, his arms rotate up. And as you can see here, this is what I'm talking about. This gets loose and it floats around. His head's on a ball joint. I can rotate. In terms of looking up, it doesn't really want to look up. So he doesn't have an articulated neck. He just has the ball joint. He can look down. He can look pretty far down. So if he wants to like count the toes on his feet, he could. Bicep cut, so he has a bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows, and the pins are hidden, which is nice. Wrist articulation is very standard. They rotate, and then they can fold either inward or outward. Again, all right, so it's really, really bothering me that I can't, because now I'm lost, because I don't know where's, okay, there it is. All right, so now his arm, there we go. It's still a very tight, like this arm could like fully roll down. This one, it's bothering me a lot that I can't, unless I have it upside down. Do I have it upside down? No. It's really bothering me that I can't roll this arm all the way down because it's so tight. Unless that's as far as it'll go, that might be it. So, we talked about the ab crunch, waist articulation. The belt and this fur piece is one piece. There's his crotch again. He could kick up. Since this is a softer plastic, it'll like kind of has some give, so it'll bend out of the way. So he doesn't kick that high up. Kicking out to the side, it's decent. He's not going to be super. No, he could super kick. I love that the knees, the pins are hidden, double jointed. You don't see the pins. It's a very near seamless kind of look. And he has a boot cut, so boot swivel, and standard ankle articulation. So yeah, this guy, you know, checks all the boxes in terms of his articulation. I kind of would appreciate it if his neck movement, you know, that he actually had more neck movement. I mean, he could just look left and right, and he could look down, but looking back's an issue, and he doesn't necessarily have any, you know, his head can't necessarily tilt, which is all right. Paint application, nice and clean on the helmet. Yeah, very solid figure. I mean, I do have some issues. Like for me, you know, this shoulder being tight, this could be my problem. You know, that might not be a problem across the board. It just might be my figure. And after a while, I feel like it'll loosen up. But for now, it's just bothersome that it's as tight as it is, because I would like to be able to pose this guy to give you an idea of, like, you know, some of the articulation and how far his posing can get. But I don't know. God, it's so hard to figure out where. So that's the thing. Once I can't see the pit right here where it's. So you can see the pit here where the articulation's at. Once it rolls up too high, I can't find it, and then I don't know where to bend the shoulder, especially since it's so tight. So now it's just going to be problematic for me. Oh, there we go. I know I'm obsessing over this, but it's just one of those things, you know, you spend so much money on a toy, you kind of expect, you want it to work, is what I'm saying, you know. And I think if I could probably loosen it up over time. It's not stuck, it's just tight. But I'm not sure if it could also be a case of maybe the socket around the shoulder is too tight fitting and it's just preventing it. Or, for all I know, there could be a piece of excess flash on the plastic. Oh, this comes off all the way. Yeah, so you can remove this without removing his head. As you can see, he has a very thin neck. So you don't want, if in real life, this is a guy that doesn't want to be dropped on his head because it'd probably kill him. Yeah, so look, I mean, I can't, this arm rolls down perfectly fine. This one does not want to roll down. It requires a lot of force. All right, so, and again, you know, I have issues with this thing just constantly floating around. I kind of wish they'd make some sort of advancement technology-wise in terms of like being able to apply this armor. In my head, the other day, I was kind of thinking about it. It'd been nice if they'd include it. It'd probably cost a lot more money, but if like some of these armor pieces were actually held in place by magnets, because some of these tiny magnets, they are strong as hell, and if they could like somehow incorporate magnets to hold on to armor pieces, I think that'd be really cool. But at the same time, if it's magnetized, you don't want your credit card anywhere near a magnet, or it'll just like wipe all the information off of it, and then your credit card will be practically useless. Alright, so this looks great. Really enjoying this figure. If I had to rate this guy numerically, solid 8 to 8.5. It looks like Duncan. It looks like Man-at-Arms. The armor's well done. The paint application's well done. Much like the other Revelation figures, it's a quality premium figure. Like I said earlier in the video, I think this is a grade above a Marvel Legends. Not by a whole lot, but just by enough. And since we're on the subject of Man-at-Arms, let's bring out a close cousin to this guy. And we have the 2000X Man-at-Arms. And let me take off this armor real quick because I want to show off this guy's face. So this is a great... I love this figure. This figure is amazing. This is the second time I had to buy this figure. I bought this guy when he originally first came out. But then he broke at the waist. It's like this snap. It was like a clean snap at the joint. And then I was able to fix it eventually with like a screw. And then at this point in time, I had like a little cousin. He was really getting into action figures. And I had this guy loose. And for whatever reason, in my demented brain, I thought it'd be a nice guy and just give him like all my Masters of the Universe 2000X toys. I kept a couple of them. But for some reason, I just felt, I'm like, you know what, you can have these. Because he was young, he was maybe like 5 years old, and he was really getting into action figures, and I wanted to be supportive of him. So I'm like, here, you know, you can have my toys. And so I gave him my toys, and then I kind of regretted it ever since. And then a couple years later, I went back and hunted them down on eBay and like rebought most of my Masters of the Universe 2000X collection. But I remember Duncan being one of my favorite figures, because it was such a far departure from the original design I grew up on. And that everything about that I thought made Duncan look cool, it's like they amplified it by like 10. You know, I loved his original armor, and I love the fact that these newer designs by the Four Horsemen, it just felt really cool. It's exaggerated. Sometimes some of the characters looked a little bit more anime in their designs and proportion. I loved how his armor on his body is actually armor. It's not like he's just wearing like a spandex outfit. There's all these crazy rivets and pipes and details and holsters this covering his armor. I loved how his armor had these giant crazy like circle rivets surrounding it, and how the one shoulder pad was ginormous. You know, around this time too, video games were always big, but like, you know, some of the designs that you'd see like in video games like Final Fantasy, they'd feature these characters with these giant pauldrons. And I loved how they incorporated that into Man-at-Arms. You know, he really felt like this crazy weapon master. And I love the head here on the new figure because it reminds me so much of this one. Especially the way the helmet flares out towards the bottom. And he has the giant mustache. I'm very partial to this design. I love this armor a lot more than this one. And I love this crazy shoulder pad. It looks great. Now, this figure was a product of a weird time period where it almost felt like you were getting like miniature statues, because even though it's articulated and whatnot, you know, his legs are articulated only at the top. They can move up, and I think, could they move out? Yeah, they can move out. But he has no knee articulation, which is mind-boggling. So it's like, it doesn't make any sense that, you know, you could raise his leg, but it's not like you could bend his knee back down so he could like be in a neutral pose that could hold his weight, if that makes any sense. So it was weird that the articulation was very limited, even though the figure itself was highly detailed. But I don't know, the Four Horsemen designs, they had so much character and personality, and they just took the character's personality and really went with the designs to amplify like who they were. And there's just something about these figures that I am so fond of them. Like, even though I grew up on the 80s figures, I think when it comes to Masters figures, the 2000X line is always going to remain to be like my favorite line of He-Man figures. And this one has a play feature too. You press the button in the back, and then he can like swing down his mace. And that's something I kind of miss. I wish the newer figures would incorporate some sort of play feature, because even though they're aimed at older collectors, I think at least I think some collectors would be able to forgive the play feature, just because it'd be a little point of nostalgia for like the toys they had as a kid. So yeah, this is a great figure. Love this a lot. I kind of wish it was a larger scale. And this handling it right now makes me really, really want to go back and try to get a bunch of these mint on card. I did have a couple of these mint on card, but for whatever reason, in my demented brain, again, I gave some of them away. Like I remember there was like a white elephant Christmas party I was going to. And for those, you know, you pretty much, everyone brings a gift and you swap gifts. Normally they're supposed to be bad gifts, but I thought it'd be funny for some reason, and I'd give out like nice gifts. So I think I threw in like a couple of Masters of Universe 2000 X line action figures into like the gift pile. And I'm regretting it now, because I just should have just held on to them, because they were mint on card, and I think it was like Beast Man, maybe like Ram Man. So I was like an idiot. And then I remember one time we were having some work done on our house, and then the construction crew, one of the workers brought his kid to the house, you know, as they were fixing it up. And I gave him one of my mint on card Masters of Universe figures. I'm like, here, you can have this. And then now looking back, it's kind of like I wish I kept it. But, you know, hopefully that kid has fond memories of playing with that toy. So I don't know. So yeah, this was Man at Arms. Great action figure. Well worth the purchase. I believe I paid $21 or $22 for him at Target. He's a great addition to the Revelation line, which I'm not 100% sold on yet. I think they're great figures, but it's like I said, for me, I think I'd rather go back and buy the classics figures than start anew with these. But I might cherry pick and get a couple of them. You know, I already have a handful of them already. But if the line's going to continue on for the near future, you know, I might just have to be selective about it. You know, I can't deny the fact that these are great, wonderful action figures. And if you're on board with them, you know, that's awesome. I remember when they first revealed photos on social media, there was a lot of fan pushback. A lot of people didn't like them. They thought some of the designs were wonky and whatnot. But, you know, they're selling. You know, Skeletor and He-Man are still kind of like just sitting on the pegs and shelves. But I think for the most part, some of the more unique characters, you know, they're going to sell. So if you see this guy, just pick him up. So let's close this video off. Once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out this video. It's running a little long. I have a tendency to ramble. But, I mean, that's mostly because, you know, for me, you're experiencing this as I'm experiencing this. So once again, thank you to all my subscribers and regular viewers. I appreciate all the likes, comments, and support. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm glad to have you aboard. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. All right, I'll talk to you later.